Encourage government to get bigger. That's one way to do it. Make college really expensive and then forgive the debt if you work for Uncle Sam.
All right, let's get to the details of what really they're asking for here. Kelly Mullen, Million Student March national event organizer. Kelly, good to have you. Keely, I'm sorry. Is it Keely or Kelly?
That's okay. It's Keely.
I apologize. So what do you want here? What do you want?
Well, so the movement, the Million Student March, is a movement for a more equitable and fair system of education, as opposed to the really corporate model that we have right now. So the three core demands of the National Day of Action are free public college, a cancellation of student debt, and a $15 an hour minimum wage for people who work on the campus.
And how's that going to be paid?
Great question. I mean, you know, so I'm not sure if you're talking on like a national level or at particular schools. I can sort of touch on both. At my university, Northeastern University,
someone asked to pick up the tab. Who would that be?
The 1% of people in society that are hoarding the wealth and really sort of causing a catastrophe that students are facing. I mean, we have a relationship right now where 1% of the population owns more wealth than the 99% combined.
All right, so if the 1%, Kelly, if the 1% just had their taxes raised a few years ago back to almost 40%, then to pay for the health care law, they had them raised another few percentage points. Then they had their deductions limited to raise another couple points, where depending on the state or locality, they're pushing over about 50% in taxes. How much higher do you think? How much more do you think they should pay?
I think enough until we have a system where not 1 in 2 American families are threatened with poverty.
So where do they go? Let's say if you tax them, they're smart folks, these people, these 1% hoarders, right? So if they leave here, then who's going to pay for all this stuff that you want?
If they leave
the country.
I mean, there's always going to be a 1% in the U.S. The U.S. is like the bastion of capitalism and its success, and I think
Do you think the 1% can pay for all of this?
Absolutely. 85 people in the world hold more wealth than half of the global population.
No, wait a minute.
I mean,
are we talking about 85 billionaires, or are you extending this to the 1% or whomever who earn a little bit north of $250,000? At what level, Keely, do you start saying you got to pay a hell of a lot more than you're paying now in taxes?
I mean, I think people earning, certainly people earning over $1 million a year should be contributing to the wellness of society.
If it's 50% now, let's say it's around 50% with taxes. We used to have a top rate of 90%. You think we should get back to that?
I mean, I think that eventually we will get back to that. I think eventually.
You're okay with that? Are some of your friends okay with that? Do some of them want to be successful themselves, and they'd be happy when they get to a level, maybe over 200,000, 250,000, they start paying 90% in taxes on that? They'll be happy with that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that
Keely, come on, you're talking to me here. Your friends are going to be happy getting to a point in their career when they can look outside and say, finally, I'm able to pay 90% in taxes.
Obviously, you know, people in your position, you know, don't want to pay 90% in taxes.
I dare say, unless you're high as a kite, you wouldn't volunteer to pay 90%, right? I mean, unless you really did see a considerable bang for the buck and it was worth it, right? But a lot of the times you realize it's not worth it, and given some of the track records we've seen with government, it doesn't always work, right?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. But the reality is we have to look at the injustice of the system as it exists right now.
Then do you think maybe if everyone paid a little bit more for this, would you pay a little bit more for this, besides the rich, to pay for that it's worth it? That do you think these are good goals?
People already are paying for this.
No, I asked it differently. I asked you, would you, Keely, and your friends, and your mom, and your dad, and your family, would they happily pay more to provide all of these benefits you just outlined?
Of course, and we already are.
No. You just said to pay for some of the things you wanted, the rich should pay significantly more than they're paying right now. Now you're telling me...
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. Everyone's already paying.
Well, they're not. I mean, now you're saying for these added benefits that you want, and they're fine benefits, don't get me wrong. You think your friends, their parents, your family would be happy to pay a little bit more to provide these guarantees and benefits.
I come from an incredibly working class family, and my family is already on numerous forms of government assistance and is basically scraping by, in order to get me through college. I live in a world and I see a system around me where there's a population that's doing nothing to contribute to the progression of society. Education is really the only way that we have innovation, that we
Keely,
have.
I'm sure you sound very smart. You know what's going on. You mentioned what's going on in the world. You're probably aware what's happening in Greece and these other countries that provided all these benefits and then some, many of which you outlined very nicely here for us today. And they're going broke, and they're out of money. And they don't know what to do. And their people are rioting on the streets because they can't believe the money's gone. And the benefits and the promises are gone.
Right.
What do you think?
I mean, there's a global catastrophe right now of complete defunding of social services and
because they ran out of money. You know what happened, Keely? They just ran out of money.
Yeah.
Right?
I understand, but there is a 1% in Greece. There's a 1% in the United States. There's a 1%. There's a ruling class in absolutely every.
I don't doubt there is, Keely. I don't doubt there is, but obviously they've been trying to tap them to get money from them. They realize either they don't have the money or they hid from the money. They're gone. They're gone.
Yeah.
And now these countries are going bust.
So then those people need to be accountable.
All right, fine, but they're smart and they're scurrying all over the globe. So now even if
they are, and that's a problem.
All right, but they've done studies on this, Keely. I don't want to get boring here. But even if you were to take the 1% and take all of their money, tax it 100%, do you know that couldn't keep Medicare, just Medicare in this country going for 3 years? Did you know that?
If we're to a point where the rich is paying 100% on their taxes, then we're on the road to socialism, and we're going to have a completely different type of public infrastructure.
No, what I told you is that even if you took all the money from the rich who you say are getting away with murder, and you took it all away, it wouldn't support one entitlement in this country for 3 years.
I don't believe that.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I just don't. That sounds completely ludicrous to me.
Do you know that how much it will cost to mandate a $15 minimum wage across the country, to have everyone's student loan debt paid off, to pay for public college for everyone?
How much?
You have a rough idea on the cost of just the educational part, on the student loan part and the public college part?
Absolutely. $1.3 trillion in student debt. That's just a beginning. And then billions and billions of dollars. Do you know how much you get fully taxing the
1%? 100%.
I don't know. Is it close to the number, the $16 trillion that we spent to bail out the banks?
Hear what I'm saying, because I just want this to be a math reminder. $1 trillion, which would barely keep Medicare going for 3 years. That's one area. Even if we repositioned it to go into this area that you want, we don't have enough to do it. So you're going to have to find other means of getting money, right?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a starting point. I mean, I think that all of these things require really comprehensive programs.
No doubt. But do you fear, Keely? I guess what I'm asking you. You're passionate about this, and I admire that passion and your involvement in this, but I think you have to step back and look at the numbers that could be involved here, because they're going to be huge. Right. And a lot of those, a college behind you and institutions behind you, knowing that student debt is taken care of, it's forgiven and done, do you think any of those guys, any of those administrators, any of those schools aren't going to leap at the opportunity to gouge even more, to raise tuitions even more, to raise room and board even more?
Well, I mean, ideally, if we have a big enough mass movement of people in the streets, we can actually prevent things like that from happening. I mean, that's one of the purposes.
All right. We'll see. We just lost her. I apologize for that, but history suggests that doesn't always happen. Dagan, Connell, what do you think?
I think the math doesn't add up, and I think that as a broad message, it's like more for nothing.